Hey everybody, it's Party Elite with a beginner's guide to Imperator, Rome. This series will take a granular approach to the various aspects of the game in the hopes of helping wherever possible, with specific episodes dedicated to each topic. That being the case means I'm always open to suggestions in the comments below on topics to cover next. Today we're going to talk about a very important aspect when it comes to managing your nation: the territories within them. It can get a little overwhelming at times, especially because of the scale of things, and before we can start talking about raising armies or engaging in battle, it's important to understand these subdivisions of land. This is a slightly longer one as well, but there is a lot of information to cover in some of these cases, so let's get started. A nation is the largest subdivision of land. Every nation will have its borders indicated with a thick, solid black line, and the holdings of any nation will be highlighted in a color, typically one that is thematically appropriate. When zoomed into the map, it can be a little hard to read separations in the default map mode, but the political map mode will bring the colors out a bit more, really helping you tell things apart. Lots of things occur at a national level in this game. You are, after all, the ruler of the entire nation. Clicking on the Nation Overview tab shows you a great deal of information. You see the type of government you have, your current ruler, how popular they are, and how corrupt they are. Depending on your type of government, your ruler will change because of elections or death, or maybe more nefarious events through your campaign. More on that in a bit. On this screen, you can also see your civilization level, which is what all your cities will trend to, up or down, and this factors into things like population growth, supply limits, happiness, and barbarian growth, all at a city level, so we'll look at that later. You can also see how many cities you have, and by hovering over this number, you'll see which provinces have how many cities, and then you can see how many pops or population units live in your nation. Hovering will divide them by culture and religion. Aggressive expansion, which we discussed in the previous episode, can be seen here as well, and finally, any modifiers that result from decisions or events will be listed in here. Your national ideas can be selected on this screen as well, and depending on your government type, the matching set will be different. Ideas provide a variety of benefits, and you can set them by clicking on this box and paying some oratory power to select any of the options here. The selection does not have to match the icon above it, but if you do that across all of your idea slots, you get the matching bonus, and that matching bonus can make a very big difference in the long run. This screen also gives you a breakdown of the cultures and faiths in your nation, and you can also see the division of population types very easily on this pie chart. The Nation Overview is also a good place to keep an eye on civil war and rebellion chances. If at least a third of your population is in disloyal provinces, or if at least a third of your cohorts are led by disloyal generals, this bar will start filling until your nation is broken into pieces. While a civil war is from your own people, a rebellion comes from people who feel like they don't belong in your nation. If at least 20% of your population is in disloyal provinces or subjects that belong to a culture group other than your own, this will start to fill until there's a rebellion. That 20% can be modified though by a variety of factors in both directions, so be wary of making the wrong decision too many times. Finally, the screen also shows you all the provinces you own, either in part or in full, and can be organized based on province name, governor name, pop type, trade route count, and loyalty. Clicking on the province name will take you to the provincial capital, and you can click through to characters or change regional policies from this window as well. The government screen can be a little different depending on your type of government, and for this video, I just want to touch on a few parts that stay pretty consistent, with a deeper dive coming later. Here is your current ruler. This is the person most likely to be your successor. Down here are the people that might succeed you instead, one way or another. Other party leaders, pretenders to the throne, it depends on the government type. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the various offices in your nation. This window will take a different video to cover in depth, but know that each of these offices have different effects on your nation, and they can be replaced by clicking this button over here. Clicking on the Laws tab over here also allows you to change various aspects of your nation's laws by spending some oratory power, as long as you have the necessary prerequisites. Different cultures and nations have slightly different requirements, so we'll do an in-depth tour of this section some other time, but keep an eye out for benefits that are particularly suitable in a given situation. There are things that affect tax and commerce rates, civilization levels, population happiness, and more. Finally, right-clicking on any of your own territory will bring up the diplomacy screen that summarizes a lot of your information in one area. This is another topic we'll discuss in depth at another time, but a few things to pay attention to include your option to change your diplomatic stance to gain different benefits, the fact that your troop count, chance of rebellion, and wealth are on display, and the fact that all your diplomatic relations are on display here as well. And by on display, I mean you can see that of foreign nations as well. Right-click on any foreign territory with nothing selected, and you can see the same information about the nation that holds it. See their troop counts, their alliances, and how much money they might have to hire mercenaries. This information can help you make decisions such as who to befriend and who to conquer. Next up, we have regions. Some regions are bigger than some nations, meaning sometimes many nations will own small parts of the same region. But as soon as you own even a single city in a region, that region becomes a subdivision of your nation, just in part. Entering the regional map mode will show you how the world is divided into regions, and if you zoom in a little, you'll be given some very important information. The person governing over the region, the loyalty of the region, the corruption level of the region, and the number of pops in that region. Hovering over any of this information will give you detailed breakdowns of where these numbers are coming from, and clicking on the portraits will take you to the respective characters' screen. These portraits represent governors, and if you select any city in a province, you'll see the governor at the top left corner of the window for that region. In the case of your capital region, your ruler will be the governor, and in the case of newly conquered territory, you'll need to assign a new governor by clicking on this bust. Some people are better suited for the job than others, not only based on their finesse, but also based on certain traits they might have. Hover over these traits to see how this person stands out as a potential governor, and select accordingly. A frontier region's governor might be more defense-oriented, whereas a commercial hub's governor should probably be better at collecting taxes. The regional level is also where you can assign an army to the governor. If you place one of your armies in the region, and it doesn't have a commander, you can assign it to the region. While this means they can only move within that region and they're commanded by the governor, it also means that unrest in the region's cities will be reduced thanks to the military presence. Now, since we're already here, let's move on to provinces, the next subdivision of land consisting of multiple cities that you can see listed here. Anytime you select a city, this screen pops up, and the province that the city belongs to gets a glowing border around it as well. Clicking on the province's map mode shows you all the provincial subdivisions, and it also shows you loyalty and population at a provincial level, as well as the provincial policy. You can change this policy either by clicking on the little pop-ups next to the provinces, or you can do so by clicking on a city and then clicking here next to the governor's portrait. While the governor is selected at a regional level, their policies can vary from province to province within that region. Once again, choose the policy based on what is best for the province in question. Acquisition of wealth is great for provinces with a large number of slaves and tribesmen, primary contributors to taxes, and also in trade hubs. Religious conversion might cause some trouble by bumping up local unrest, but you'll get the chance to convert the local population to your faith without having to spend any religious power. Religious unity is important after all. It affects the power of your omens, and it also affects happiness. Cultural assimilation is similar, though this is about converting people of foreign cultures to your own, and bleed them dry is a desperate policy for when you need money at the cost of local unrest and population, and borderlands is a good idea for border provinces during a war for the extra fort defense. The bump to manpower can also be quite helpful in your more populous provinces in order to bolster your numbers. Encourage trade is a great way to increase money coming in from commerce, and it'll allow you to import more goods to the province. A very important strategic decision that I'll discuss in depth in a later video. Social mobility is an attempt to spread the population types evenly across the board in the cities of this province, while local autonomy reduces how much you get from the population living in the province, but it does make them a lot happier. Not a bad idea when going through rough times. Finally, civilization effort is a good call when you've colonized new lands or just took territory from the less civilized folk in the world. This will have the province make an effort to increase civilization levels in the cities of the province, something that can have a huge impact on a variety of things. Back here, you can see all of the goods available to the owner of the province within this province, either through local production or through trade. It's important to understand that goods are produced at a city level, but they're circulated throughout the owned parts of the province. So any one city can produce a certain trade good, and the entire owned part of the province will have access to it. And if multiple cities in one province produce the same trade good, you'll see a surplus. You'll also see a surplus if there are multiple import routes for that product, or a combination of production and import for that product. Hovering over the trade goods here will tell you what benefits you're currently reaping and where the goods are coming from or going to. Clicking here, meanwhile, will allow you to arrange and look at the trade situation in the province. Keep in mind that the goods you see here are only the ones that the selected city's owner has access to in this province, because provinces aren't always controlled by one nation. You can also see which city is responsible for producing which good in this list over here, and it will also tell you who owns which city, which takes us to the smallest subdivision: cities. Cities are the smallest building blocks of your nation. If little drops make the mighty ocean, then little cities make the mighty empire. Every city belongs to a province, which in turn belongs to a region, which in turn belongs to a nation. All of the modifiers applied by governors, policies, ideas, laws, stability, tyranny, etc., all of those modifiers from the top down ultimately affect the cities. Anytime you click on land that isn't impassable terrain or uncolonized, you will be given the joint province and city window. We already discussed the provincial part of it, but now let's take a look at these city details. Right away you can see who the city belongs to, the name of the city, and any modifiers that might be applying to the city at the time. In war, if you've occupied a city, you can transfer ownership to an ally with this button here as well. You'll do that if you want to make sure that somebody else gets a parcel of land when you're suing for peace. Below that, you can see, in the left column, what trade goods the city produces, and what benefits that trade good can provide, as well as what kind of terrain it has, potentially affecting growth, battle, movement, attrition, and supply limits, followed by the current civilization level of the city, the barbarian power in the area, the level of the fort if one is present, the size of the garrison if one is present, the supply limit, additional attrition that might be applied to armies in the city, and the impact that this city has to the overall loyalty of the province. Even though a province as a whole may be loyal, there may be certain cities that don't feel the same way. Hovering over any of these values will tell you exactly why the number is what it is, and might give you an idea of what you should look out for, and what you should prioritize at this city level. Moving on from that, you can see here the amount of different population types in the city. From top to bottom, they are citizens, freemen, tribesmen, and slaves. In order, they provide research points and commerce value, manpower, manpower and tax, and finally, tax. You can also see how happy each type of population is. A less happy population is less productive, so you'll want to try and maximize happiness to maximize output. Low happiness can also start generating unrest, which can become a problem very quickly if left unchecked. You can also see the population growth in this specific city here. One of these four squares will have a little plus or minus in the corner, indicating that the population is either growing or shrinking, and also specifying which population type is in the process of growing by 1 or shrinking by 1. This little bar below will slowly fill up, and once it's filled, you'll either see a new pop of that type appear in the city, or one get removed if you're seeing a negative population growth. Every cycle, a new pop type is picked at random to generate or remove, and you can affect the speed of this progress by modifying growth rate. Laws, policies, trade goods all play their part. If you're wondering why population is tucked under the city building area, that's because every 10 pops you have allow you to build one more building than the base number of 1. When the time comes, you can build 4 types of buildings: marketplaces to increase local tax, commerce, and civilization levels, training camps to increase local manpower amounts, fortresses to add a fort to the city, and granaries to increase population growth and slave happiness. You can build multiples of each building type, and the benefits stack with simple multiplication. Finally, at the bottom corner, you can see the dominant local culture, the dominant local religion, the income contribution of this city, and how that number is reached, the research contribution of the city, and how that number is reached, the manpower contribution of the city, and how that number is reached, and finally, the local unrest levels, and you guessed it, how that number is reached as well. I talk about manpower and income in more depth in a previous video in this series, and I'll discuss unrest and research in more depth in an upcoming video as well. Now finally, you can click here to recruit units at the city. You can get all of these city-level details about foreign nations as well, if you want to find the juiciest pot of gold or the biggest source of manpower, or if you want to obtain a specific resource. This is the screen where you can figure out what you should plan your conquests around. As a quick sidebar, if you're ever having trouble finding your capital, just click this button here. And if you need to find a specific city, province, region, or even nation, just click this button or tap F and type in the name of whatever it is you're looking for. The game will present you with an easy list and teleport you right over. Also keep in mind a couple of icons. This signifies a national capital. This signifies a provincial capital. This signifies a port. And this signifies a fortress. With the tremendous size of the map in Imperator Rome, things can get a little daunting, but if you divide everything into consumable parts, it becomes a lot easier to digest. Understand that everything trickles down, but everything also builds up. Every piece of the nation is intertwined, so make sure you're keeping an eye on every level of government, whether it's on your side of the border or on the other. I hope this video gives you a clear understanding of exactly how your nation is built from the city up, and if you have any questions or thoughts of your own, feel free to drop them in the comments below. As always, I'm also looking for suggestions for future topics, so if you have any, let me know down below as well. A massive thanks goes out to all of my channel members and patrons for supporting this channel on a monthly basis, and a massive thanks goes out to you for watching. Until next time, cheers.